WWE is reportedly hosting 2 WrestleManias a year. We're going to talk about that. Plus, Tony Khan and the Continental Classic, huge update on that. And yes, we do got to talk about a former WWE superstar appearing in AEW, and it's all coming up right here, right now on The Ango Show. And if you guys want more videos like this, don't forget to click that subscribe button. This way you can stay up to date with everything happening in professional wrestling. Let's kick things off with the Continental Classic. And this is one that is very interesting to me because the Continental Classic has actually become something I've really enjoyed with AEW. I think this is kind of the influence of the G1 Climax that has brought its way to America. It's been really fun to watch. And Tony Khan has been talking about doing one for the women, but we haven't seen him do one for the women, which is interesting because AEW also hasn't done a blood and guts match for the women. And a lot of people have kind of been curious as to why. Now, Tony Khan was on the radio Q93 in New Orleans, and he was discussing the idea of launching a Continental Classic for the women, but why he hasn't done so. He says, "We've got the women's world title and the TBS title. I think the Continental would certainly be something very, very interesting. We had some injuries happen in the women's division earlier this year at the All In pay per view in Texas." Now, one thing that is not really being talked about here is what the prize would be. And I'll get to that in a second. He says, "I think it would be a great thing if we get the division healthy where we've got all of our top fighters ready to go. That could be a really great thing. You know, that's a very intense tournament with matches every week. It's hard hitting. Last year, we actually had an injury on the men's side. One injury when you have a tournament like that can change everything. So I'm very open to it, especially if we could get all the top wrestlers healthy to compete." Now, this makes a lot of sense. I can understand that. The women's division does have to be healthier because you do have a lot of top stars who are currently off of television as well. But when it comes to the Continental Classic, you know, they have the unified championship for the men's side because they had the Continental belt and the international championship. They merged them. But now I'm curious, what would the prize be for the Continental Classic if the women were to have this? And that's not something we've had an answer, you know. And I think Tony Khan is right. They have the TBS title and the world title. Is this a tournament where instead of just creating a new title for the women, you would just gift one of these titles? Like that could be a possibility. Um, Personally speaking, I know this is probably the unpopular opinion, but some people need to understand that like the Continental Classic really became a cool thing because it had its own title associated with it, at least in my eyes. I wouldn't be mad if they had a women's Continental Championship, or in this case, a women's unified championship. So that would be 3 singles belts for the women and then the same for the men. I would be okay with that. That's going to take us to our next story, ladies and gentlemen. We should probably talk about this. We have a debut in Ring of Honor. Now, this is Caden Carter from WWE. And you guys know I've spoken about Caden Carter potentially wanting to go to AEW because this is something that has been talked about a lot actually recently. She's been pretty vocal about wanting to work for AEW. And today we found out that she has officially worked the Ring of Honor tapings. Now, technically, as of now, we don't have confirmation that she has signed with the company. We don't have any confirmation that she signed with Ring of Honor as well. However, Bodyslam.net posted this photo that was taken by Dynenberg Max. And if you look at this photo, that's Lacey Lane, which was Caden Carter's name prior to joining WWE. And they did these tapings obviously at the 2300 Arena. So we know this will air. I'm not going to tell you guys any of the results or anything like that. But this is somebody who has been very vocal, whether it be on Busted Open Radio or other interviews. You know, Caden Carter has said like she wants to work. She doesn't really care. You know, TNA is an option, AEW is an option. Um, you know, I think when we talk about AEW and their women's division, it has gotten a lot beefier, and I think they've done a lot of good signings in the women's division. I think certain areas have been booked pretty well. I think certain areas need a little bit of help. But I think if I were Tony Khan, there has been this rumor of doing women's tag team championship belts. Caden Carter and Casey Castansaro, both of them should probably be signed to AEW and be part of the women's tag team division. You know, you got the Triangle of Madness. They're a legit tag team. I think you could do stuff with Caden Carter and you know Casey. Like Obviously, for them to join AEW and become part of the women's tag team division only helps solidify it. You know, I think it's the right move, bro. I'm not even gonna lie. I think it's definitely the right move. I think it's definitely something that should happen. And I think with AEW, having Lacey Lane in this particular situation, being on Ring of Honor, I think it's a way to just kind of analyze, right? Kind of like a tryout in a way. AEW used to do that with Dark. I don't know if you guys remember, but there would be talent who would go on Dark, and this would allow Tony Khan and the people to kind of assess, and I think that's kind of a good idea. Use Ring of Honor in this case. Like, it's a TV taping at the 2300 Arena. If you're going to sign her tag team partner, bring them together. To me, it's just a no brainer. I feel like it's a no brainer. I feel like it should happen. I'm excited to see it happen. I'm excited to see whatever unfolds. But you can never go wrong with signing a legit women's tag team, especially if you're trying to have a women's tag team division. And that brings us to our final topic. Ladies and gentlemen, you may have seen the news by now. WrestleMania, Saudi Arabia. It's taking place at WrestleMania 43 in 2027. However, we have learned so much new information about this, and we've heard rumors about this. I covered this about a month ago, in which there would be rumors that there would be 2 WrestleManias a year. Now we have some more updates. So basically, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is spending a lot of money for WWE to bring WrestleMania there. And I think WWE is in a very interesting situation here because WrestleMania has never been international. Now, we have all seen the greatest Royal Rumble, which was it was a bigger version of the Royal Rumble, but for Saudi Arabia. And obviously, with them investing so much money, they want the top stars, they want all of these things. I think WWE is going to get to the point where there is going to be 2 WrestleManias a year. So one that is domestic and then one that is international. And when I say international, it doesn't mean it's just going to be Saudi Arabia every time. I think you do 2 WrestleManias a year, and then essentially what you're doing is you're going to have one maybe like in the fall or winter, and then one in the spring summer time, right? Or like, yeah, because WrestleMania April, May typically. So listen, the way I'm kind of looking at this is like you do 2 WrestleManias a year. I think WWE, strangely enough, could pull it off. Now, the word that's going around is WWE is planning for 2 WrestleMania events in one year. However, that is not expected to begin in 2027. So WWE WrestleMania Saudi Arabia WrestleMania 43, there shouldn't be another WrestleMania that year. Now, how does that work with travel and all of that stuff that we've kind of known with WWE and how they do things? I don't know. That's something that we have to learn about. But WWE going to Saudi Arabia, bringing WrestleMania, it will clearly be a spectacle. The word going around is that they want every legend there. They want like everybody massive. They are going to stack the deck with this. And I could totally understand why they would. I'm very, very curious to see what a WrestleMania looks like in Saudi Arabia. Definitely not shocked that this is happening. I kind of expected this since their partnership kicked off. And when you look at Riyadh season and all of the events that they have, I mean, this weekend they have Crawford and Canelo. There's just a lot that could be said about it. So, very, very excited to see what comes from that. And I'm very, very intrigued.